No matter how experienced you get, no matter how many connections you have, those perfect deals don't exist.
Another issue I guess I see a lot of novice investors make is chasing shiny object syndrome. And the thing is, they're becoming professional consumers rather than really dialing in on one strategy and becoming an expert and then executing on it.
You need to be a master of your trade. There's an old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, a bite at a time.
A bite at a time, an offer at a time, a deal at a time, a coffee at a time.
My number one piece of advice for everyone watching this video is go out and make an offer. And hey, why not make more offers? What is up YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video with Kyle Ford, we dive deep into the mistakes that we see new investors making time and time again. In fact, it's almost painful at this point to see beginner investors making the same mistakes. So we're going to try and really demystify a lot of the process and break down a lot of the limiting beliefs that we see beginner novice investors have towards real estate investing. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's dive into today's video. What is up YouTube? Matt McKeever here again with Kyle Ford, and in today's video we're going to dive into a topic that never gets old, and that topic is the biggest mistakes that new investors make. Turns out you guys make a lot of mistakes, and often it's just you're getting in your own headspace, in my opinion. So one of the first topics Kyle and I really want to chat about was trying to get the perfect deal the first time. So do you mind just kind of elaborating on what you see investors doing and maybe some of the areas that they're too fixated on rather than understanding the big picture?
Yeah, on the BRRRR model, people trying to get 100% out of everything. On the first deal, I think I was about 75% out.
Yeah.
I had some of my money invested in the deal. Yes, whenever else possible, if we can do a deal with other people's money, of course we want to do that. But on your first couple deals, as you're building your portfolio, you're building your reputation. If you can get 75% of your cash out of a deal in 6 months or less, that is a home run.
Yeah,
that is a great deal. So I see so many people fixated on, well, I got $5,000 left in the deal. That's amazing. Take it and move on to the next deal.
Yeah, so I think the real problem that I've kind of focused on with this mindset that a lot of new investors have is, they watch my YouTube video, they see me do a perfect BRRRR, and all of a sudden they want to top me. And the thing is, you guys, you can top me. You can absolutely beat me as a real estate investor, but if you don't have any experience, if you don't have any confidence or competence, it's going to be a real struggle. And the problem is, everyone wants a perfect BRRRR. So when you look at it, I often find new investors, they want a 100% guaranteed deal. They want just that home run, that grand slam. And with that, the real problem is everyone else wants it. Yep. So all of a sudden, your competition is everyone, because who wouldn't want an easy BRRRR with vacant possession that's 50 cents on the dollar, all those great little buzz terms. But you know what? A lot of beginner investors, they are making that mistake. So if you're willing to all of a sudden accept the sort of deals that Kyle was laying out, all of a sudden your competition becomes smaller. The other thing is we need to understand it's very rare that a deal gets served up to us on a silver platter. Often we need to use creativity in our experience to really dial in what that opportunity looks like, right? I'm guessing most of the time you don't get a deal that's just wrapped in a bow, and the realtor hands you all the financial information and it's obvious how to make money.
Never. No matter how experienced you get, no matter how many connections you have, those perfect deals don't exist.
Yeah.
So hit your doubles, hit your stand-up triples. You don't need to hit that grand slam home run on every single project that you do. Your reputation and your portfolio and what you can do if you show the general public that you did a 75% out deal in 6 months or less, your friends and family are going to be interested and want to do those deals with you.
That may not be magic to a really sophisticated real estate investor, but to Joe public, that literally is magic.
That is magic, 100%.
And I think way too often, again, we're in our own headspace and we're just really caught up trying to do that perfect deal. It's never going to be on a silver platter. Like Kyle was saying, perfect deals don't exist. We have to create them, if anything. And the other another thing I'd really like to put into perspective, most of us are very comfortable going to university for 4 years and spending $40, $50, $60, $100,000 on tuition, but all of a sudden, when your tuition's $5,000 investment into that BRRRR property, and you're not going to do that deal because you're going to have $5,000 tied into a property that's going to cash flow every single month, like that to me is insanity. That you want such a fantastic deal right off the bat that it just needs to do everything for you all at once. Another issue I guess I see a lot of novice investors make is chasing shiny object syndrome. So would you mind touching upon that? Like, so they're jumping from strategy to strategy without ever actually committing to one. Yeah. So one week they see me do a video on rent to owns, the next week they hear about BRRRRs, week after that's flipping, and the thing is they're becoming professional consumers rather than really dialing in on one strategy and becoming an expert and then executing on it.
Yeah, and what you said there is perfect, Matt, because they're also blurring the strategies.
Yes.
They're using a turnkey cash flow analysis to analyze an underperforming property. Mm-hmm. That a BRRRR analysis versus a turnkey rental property is two different analyses. So when they're chasing that shiny object, they're missing opportunities because they're applying the wrong strategy to that deal. The other thing is, a jack of all trades, the master of none. Right? If people don't know that you're looking for underperforming rental properties and you're the guy to buy underperforming rental properties, but all of a sudden you're advertising rent to own all over the place, maybe that half vacant sixplex that they have, they're not thinking of you anymore because they think you're on rent to own. You need to be a master of your trade.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip. Another major mistake I see investors make is lying to themselves about their numbers. And so I'm sure you've seen this as an investor, but also as a mortgage agent. So what I often see is investors coming in bragging about how they're buying a deal at an 8 cap rate. But then when I pick away at the numbers a little bit more, I see, oh, there's no property management, there's no repairs and maintenance, things of that nature. Do you mind talking about that either as an investor or a mortgage agent or as both? Because I think it's something really important that people understand. Just because you can lie to yourself on paper doesn't mean reality is going to mirror it.
100%. When a lending institution is valuing your rental property, more so when you get into the 3 to 5 range in terms of properties, not the 1. But they're starting to look at you like a business. They're looking at your expenses. And if your business is you're buying properties that have no vacancy, they self-manage, don't need any repair, and you say you have positive cash flow, a lending institution is going to look at that and say, you're telling me there's no vacancy? And they're going to put their own vacancy rate in. They're going to put their own repair and maintenance budget in. And sometimes those are for the positive. More often than not, it's for the negative.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect your approval. A common thing that we hear is that the banks use 50% rental income.
Yeah.
And though that's mostly true, a lot of the times that's just the high level of what they use at the retail branch. They'll use 100% of the rental income on the back end, but they're going to budget out the expenses that more often than not works out to be about 50% of the rental income. So if you're not positioning yourself like a business and positioning your application to those lending institutions where you've accounted for those things, they're going to start doing their own numbers, and it's not to your advantage.
And then building upon that idea of if you're not treating your real estate like a business, and I see beginner investors do this all the time, because you're special, you're able to keep that 0% vacancy, you're able to, keep repairs and maintenance to pennies a year, things of that nature. But the problem is, as we scale as investors, and most of us want to scale, at some point in time you're going to have to take on outside management, and realistically that our returns diminish, not just because we're paying out those expenses, but also they're not going to work as hard as you. No one's going to care more about your money than you guys are. So it's really important that we use realistic numbers to represent sort of what our cost expectations are. So are there some rules of thumb, Kyle, that you use as far as like repairs and maintenance or vacancy or things of that nature? And then if there's a difference between you, the mortgage agent, and you, the investor, feel free to share.
Well, I'll start with the first part of that conversation, which was if you're not budgeting for vacancy, you're not budgeting for repair and maintenance, you're not budgeting for property management, all you've done is buy yourself another job.
Yes.
You will be stuck working in this property just like you were stuck in your job. So you need to begin at the end and bind. Did you get into real estate to start plunging toilets? Probably not. So in the beginning, if you're willing to do that stuff to keep more cash, to buy more properties, a lot of us have been there. So I'm not going to say don't do that, but at least be honest with yourself in the expenses, because if your properties that you're buying don't support this stuff now, they're not going to support it later when you try to retire or become financially independent from your properties. So in terms of general numbers that I'll either use a CMHC guideline rate for a vacancy, or I use the greater of the CMHC rate or 5%. So if in Kitchener it's about 3% vacancy rate, I think is what CMHC posts, I budget 5.
Yeah.
Property management, I use about $50 a door is generally what I'm paying right now on a multiplex. Repair and maintenance, same $750 a door is what CMHC's guideline is.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm using. I've heard a couple different things. 1% of the property value, 10% of the income, $750 a door. I think you need to be a little bit fluid in your property analysis and see, is it a brand new property? Okay, $750 a door is probably reasonable. Is it an 1850 farmhouse that's converted into a sixplex? We probably want to do 1% of the property value. So be consistent, but be fluid depending on the property and making sure it's and ask another investor. Ask somebody you know who owns a property like that, what are they spending on repair and maintenance every year?
Yeah, that's critical advice there, guys. So I hope you were taking notes. If not, you can always replay that last couple minutes there. But
Cashflow Tribe.
Hey YouTube, have you checked out Cashflow Tribe yet? It doesn't matter whether you're an experienced, seasoned investor or brand new to the game. I can probably predict if you're currently not having the level of success you want as a real estate investor, it's due to one thing. That one thing is you're not making enough offers, plain and simple. You need to be making more offers as a real estate investor if you want to hit those big, audacious goals that you're setting for yourself. So here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe, that's the community that myself and Ben were making together. And so Ben's actually so busy trying to provide value to you guys that he had to take off there. But here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe is really a one-of-a-kind community focused on results. That's the difference between us and everyone else. We want to get you guys those results. I'm tired of seeing people commenting on my YouTube channel for 2-3 years now, but they're not making offers. What's holding you back? I'm going to guess that it's either a lack of confidence or a lack of competence. And we cover both of those things in Cashflow Tribe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you guys a 7-day free trial offer. You can join Cashflow Tribe completely free, get to test it out. If you like it, great, stay and pay. If you don't, well, I hope you at least find one great idea that you can take away and use to start making more offers, gain more deals, and finally start making the money related to real estate investing that's probably why you're watching my YouTube channel. So let's do this, guys. Let's make 2020 your year.
Cashflow Tribe.
Be consistent, but be fluid depending on the property and making sure it's and ask another investor. Ask somebody you know who owns a property like that, what are they spending on repair and maintenance every year?
That's critical advice there, guys. So I hope you were taking notes. If not, you can always replay that last couple minutes there. But when he's talking about $750, that's $750 a year, right?
Per door. Per door, per unit.
Yeah. Exactly. So I love that. Another major mistake I see a lot of beginner investors make is they think they have to invest in their backyard. Can you touch upon that?
Well, I'm going to be totally hypocritical because I'm a firm believer of invest where the returns are best, and you don't have to invest in your own backyard. I happen to be born and raised in Kitchener-Waterloo. It's a great market to invest in, and I've built my teams and systems in that market. One of the best things I ever did was the first cottage I ever bought was 3 hours away. And when there was a plumbing issue at one of my triplexes in Kitchener, we called the plumber, and I went and stood there watching the plumber fix it. And then the plumber fixed it and said, I'll email you the bill. And I would still do that until I bought the cottage in Wyerton. When I bought that cottage, it was 3 hours away. There was a plumbing issue. I called a plumber. They emailed me the bill and I paid it. And I had my first aha moment of, I don't need to stand there and watch the plumber. My new business manager, Wes, he just did this on a plumbing issue. He went and let the plumber in and I said, why'd you go there? He's like, well, I thought I was supposed to. I was like, you don't have to. We put lock codes on it, and now since then, when there's a plumbing issue, he calls and delegates it. So I'm a firm believer of investor return to your best, even if that's not in your backyard. I, for the most part, have invested in my backyard, but I do think that's something that's slowed me down. I think if I moved in other markets sooner, I would be farther ahead. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so let's talk about maybe some best practices, because you even just talking about having lock codes on your buildings or having like a keypad, things of that nature. So what other tips would you recommend that beginner investors can consider that aren't maybe going to break the bank, but will help them streamline their processes?
So I put door codes and lock boxes at all properties. So I can be not home and a plumber calls. I've had issues where police have had to get into a building or a unit. So when they're calling, we can say, hey, lockbox code is XYZ, unit number is this, the door code for that is this. So a police officer could get in an emergency.
Otherwise, they're kicking down the door and they're not footing the bill on that.
No,
so same with fire department.
Yeah, you better have a good repair and maintenance budget if that's the case.
Also helpful just even if like people lock themselves out. So I do a lot of student rentals, and like the first year was just so painful having to drive every single time a student locked themselves out of their bedroom or the house. So we immediately switched over to keypads. Never been back since.
It's amazing. Another thing that you can buy Arlo cameras for $500, $499.99. And this isn't a pitch for Arlo, but they're $500. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection, and they're totally wireless. Now, one thing I will say is don't have every notification going to your phone. You're going to drive yourself crazy. Paranoia. I do it. I have them on my cottage rentals, and I do it to monitor guests to make sure that on check-in and check-out date, there's only 10 people, not 30. The other thing it's actually been kind of effective for is trades. If a plumber bills me 2 hours and I see they were only there for 15 minutes, I might have some questions about that. So, but going back to, you don't want to be constantly monitoring these videos. It'll drive you nuts. If you run a vacation rental and they say they're going to have 10 and 12 people show up, it's probably not the end of the world. If 30 people show up, then you might have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Anything else that comes to mind when you think about beginner investors in areas that they struggle, or advice that maybe you wish that Kyle Ford would have got 5-10 years ago when you were just breaking into this game?
The one mistake that I made over and over again, it was putting the wrong strategy to the wrong property. So making sure you're applying the right strategy to the right property. The other thing is you don't need to hit grand slam home runs, 150% cash out burrs on every single deal. Hit your stand-up doubles, couple slide-in triples, and make a good profit, but most importantly, get your confidence up. Your confidence is one of the biggest, between Kyle Ford 5 years ago and Kyle Ford now, is confidence. I'm confident that I can do deals. So it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Keep making the offers. There's an old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
A bite at a time.
A bite at a time, an offer at a time, a deal at a time, a coffee at a time.
That's one of my biggest frustrations is people will come to me and they're like, hey, should I set up like the 3-tier corporate structure? Do I need to do LPs and general partnerships, things of that nature? I'm like, whoa. How much real estate do you own again? And they're like, oh, I haven't made an offer yet. I'm like, well, let's maybe make an offer first. Let's try real estate before we drop 20 grand in corporate structures and then decide that it's not the right business model for us.
You do, and I'm going to say this with an exclamation mark, you do not need to have your company incorporated before you make an offer. If you have 30-day closing, you can incorporate the company before closing. I'll say that again. You do not need to have an incorporated company to make an offer. It is. I hear this nonstop, and people are so concerned about, it's a Canadian thing, we're concerned about the taxes. You do not need this corporate structure to make an offer. Make an offer, book an appointment with an accountant, spend a couple $100, have them fully review it. There's nothing wrong with owning a couple properties personally. I still have some personal property. I'm moving more corporate now. But owning a couple personal properties is okay.
Absolutely. Way too many investors, they let this idea of corporate structure stop them from ever starting. And that to me is just like insanity that you're going to let a minor detail like that, and it truly is a minor detail, because Because you know what happens if you don't have the right corporate structure from day one? You just fix it down the road. But you know what's going to happen is if you're in that position where you're able to fix it, it means you're becoming a successful investor. So all of a sudden, you know, having to spend an extra $5,000 or $10,000 setting it up, you know, tomorrow versus today, not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. It's just like, again, people are constantly looking for excuses or barriers or limiting beliefs so that they have an explanation for why they didn't take action. My number one piece of advice for everyone watching this video is go out and make an offer. And hey, why not make more offers? So before we wrap this up, Kyle, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to follow along with your journey, what's the best way, again, contact?
The best way is email Kyle at Bremac Real Estate, BREMAC realestate.com. Shoot me an email. Myself, my business manager, Wes, will take care of you guys and answer any questions that you need.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks again to Kyle Ford for taking the time to do this entire video series. If you guys have been enjoying the videos we do with Kyle Ford, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel, and check out these playlists. We've got one with Kyle Ford right here where he dives deep into exactly the numbers and the deals he's actively investing in. And then this other playlist down here where he's just going to teach you more great lessons in regards to real estate investing.